In June 1983, over 200 high-ranking national security officials gathered in a classified setting for a wargame codenamed Proud Prophet. Under the direction of U.S. Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger, the exercise tested a theory gaining traction among military planners. Planners called it nuclear utilization target selection. The premise was that a nation could fight a limited, controlled nuclear exchange. By firing low-yield tactical weapons at military targets, a state could signal its resolve and force an adversary to back down, all without triggering global destruction. During the simulation, NATO forces buckled under a conventional offensive. To halt the advance, the command authorized a limited strike, 11 tactical nuclear artillery shells, intended as a firm de-escalatory warning shot. This strategy rested on a single assumption, that an opposing military command, watching troops and equipment vaporize, would calmly interpret the incoming nuclear detonations as a diplomatic signal to negotiate. The opposing command in the simulation did not see a subtle warning. They interpreted the 11 detonations as the opening salvo of a preemptive disarming attack aimed at neutralizing their own arsenal. Modern ballistic trajectories remove the luxury of deliberation. From the moment early warning radars detect a launch, leaders have under 15 minutes to authorize a counterstrike before their own weapons are destroyed. This tight timeline forced a use-it-or-lose-it panic. Simulated emergency hotlines were dismissed as deception. Within days, tactical battlefield strikes expanded into theater strikes, and theater strikes rapidly escalated into full-scale strategic salvos against cities. By the 7th day of the exercise, the simulated death tolls surpassed 500 million people. Proud Prophet demonstrated that escalation control breaks down immediately under operational stress. This failure of limited nuclear warfare was not a new discovery. In 1955, NATO conducted Operation Carte Blanche, an exercise simulating the release of 335 tactical nuclear weapons to defend West Germany from a conventional invasion. The adjudication of the exercise calculated 1.7 million prompt deaths and 3.5 million wounded in 48 hours. Using tactical nuclear weapons to halt the invasion physically annihilated the host nation NATO was attempting to protect. Modern modeling shows an even steeper curve. In 2019, Princeton University developed a simulation called Plan A, modeling a contemporary peer conflict that begins with a single tactical warning shot fired from Kaliningrad. A single retaliatory airstrike expands into 480 theater warheads. Within 3 hours, the localized skirmish scales into a global exchange, resulting in 90 million casualties. Theoretical firewalls do not hold on a nuclear battlefield. Resorting to these weapons for territorial defense ensures the total destruction of the territory itself. Strategy often assumes planners can target isolated military assets, like fortified underground silos, while avoiding mass civilian casualties. The physics of thermonuclear detonations dictate otherwise. Destroying a hardened subterranean target requires a ground burst. The fireball must physically connect with the earth to transfer enough dynamic pressure into the bedrock to crush the bunker. That contact vaporizes the terrain. The detonation scoops up millions of tons of dirt, irradiates the debris, and drafts it upward. Prevailing winds catch this radioactive column, carrying it hundreds of miles to deposit lethal fallout over civilian centers. Because atmospheric conditions dictate where fallout lands, isolating a counterforce strike to military targets is impossible. A surgical strike invariably becomes a mass casualty event. For those caught in the downwind plume, penetrating ionizing radiation directly damages cellular DNA at the genetic level, triggering acute radiation syndrome. Exposure to doses between 0.7 and 10 gray induces the hematopoietic syndrome. The radiation penetrates the bone marrow and destroys pluripotent stem cells, halting the body's ability to produce blood. Within weeks, the depletion of white blood cells and platelets leaves the victim defenseless, leading to fatal systemic hemorrhaging and opportunistic infections. At higher doses of 10 to 100 gray, the gastrointestinal syndrome takes hold. The radiation ablates the actively dividing crypt cells of the intestinal lining. The tissue sloughs away, resulting in severe dehydration and fatal sepsis within days, regardless of medical intervention. Long after the thermal flash and blast wave dissipate, this invisible exposure condemns millions of survivors to a slow, inescapable biological collapse. Once the tactical thresholds fail and military targets are exhausted, An unrestrained exchange moves to its final phase, strategic strikes aimed directly at highly populated urban and industrial centers. Multi-megaton detonations over cities ignite hundreds of square miles of infrastructure simultaneously. These mass fires merge into self-sustaining firestorms, generating violent pyroconvective updrafts. These immense thermal drafts act as chimneys, pumping an estimated 150 teragrams of black carbon soot straight up. The altitude is the critical variable. The soot bypasses the troposphere and settles directly in the stratosphere, high above the weather layer. There is no rain to wash it out, sealing the planet's fate. The aerosol blanket blocks solar radiation, dropping global temperatures 8 degrees Celsius and freezing agricultural belts. Simultaneously, the heated soot accelerates chemical reactions that destroy 75% of the ozone layer, flooding the surface with lethal UVB radiation. The combination of shortened, freezing growing seasons and extreme ultraviolet exposure collapses terrestrial agriculture and marine food chains. Food distribution networks break down entirely. Over 5 billion people would die from global starvation, a number drastically eclipsing the prompt casualties of initial strikes. The progression from 11 warning shells to 5 billion deaths proves escalation control is a political fantasy, contradicted by the physical mechanics of the weapons. The only way to win the game is to ensure it is never played.